Hi, my name's John Calton. I live in New Cross in London, just south of the river, and I am a card maker. So what I will be showing you today is how to make a card. So I'm starting off with all my supplies basically. Card making, lots of paper of different colours. And what I've done on this one is I've actually printed out the words. So basically I'm using the text from the Katrina and the Waves song, Love Shine a Light in Every Corner of My Heart. And what I'm going to be doing is using this as the basis for the card. I'm going to be inking around this stencil that I've made, cut out from this heart-shaped die, and then I'm going to be layering that with some other hearts that I have cut out, and also showing how you use distress inks and distress oxides to create some interesting effects. So first of all, this is the basis of the card. This is watercolour paper, so that I can also use watercolour brush pens on it. So basically, the first thing I'm going to do is actually create an interesting effect across this card. So I'm putting my watercolour paper down. I'm using a water pen, a water brush pen that is, and I'm using these Arteza pens, which I really like, a relatively new addition to my craft supplies, a birthday present from my birthday in April. So the first thing I'm going to do, get my brush pen, I'm literally just going to draw a squiggly line across the page, almost like a heartbeat. These pens are great, I absolutely love them. I've not had them that long, but they're just great and you can obtain some really great effects with them. Water brush, I always squeeze it out to get just a little bit of water flowing, and this pen on this paper, it reacts and it allows you to drag the ink, so you can create some interesting effects by swirling the ink and just dragging it away from the line that you created. You can obviously, the more water you apply, the more watered down it gets. You can always go back in again and touch it up, but that's all I wanted to do. Always clean the brush afterwards on a piece of kitchen towel so that the nib is clean again for the next time you want to use it. So you can see, very simply, that has created a really interesting effect straight away. Dry that, just with a blow, that's fine. Whilst that's drying, I'm just going to put that aside. I'm going to show you what I've done with these hearts. So this was just a simple piece of white card. You can see where I've cut the heart shaped out. What I've done, I've used distress ink and a little spongy gadget. I don't really know what you even call that, to be honest. Basically, you get some ink on the brush, you use it like that to just evenly distribute it, and then very carefully, with a really light pressure, you just go around the edges. This isn't a quick process, this one, and sort of swirling around in brush patterns, you darken the edges, and then you end up with quite a nice effect where obviously the centre of the heart is lighter because you haven't gone through the centre of the heart, and the outer edge is darker, which creates an interesting effect. What you can then do is just use the brush straight on the ink and go round the edges of the heart. That gives you a really dark edge around the outside and looks great. What we're going to do, we're going to layer these hearts so that we put one on top of the other. And what that will create is quite an interesting effect because you've got the dark edges and the different hearts sitting on top of one another. So imagine it's going to look something like that. So what I'm going to do, I've already got two here that I've created, and I've stuck one down with a little raised pad. I'm actually now going to stick the other one down. So these are little sticky squares basically. I use a pair of tweezers to just pick them up, and they're little double-sided squares basically. So you just put them on, position them how you want, and then you just peel off the backing tape basically, and they stick, obviously without sticking while you're working on them. So basically stick them where you want. Always make sure that you put one in the centre because that's where you're going to need to press down when you join it with the other pieces. Put them on and then peel off the little backing bits one by one. Boom, boom. You've got little bits to deal with, but they're pretty straightforward. You can get these pretty much anywhere, any craft supplier. Peel off all those little bits and then mount this heart on top of the other one. Now, a lot of crafting is just done by eye, so I will literally just put that where I think roughly it should go, and then sit it on top. So you can now see I've got 3 little concentric hearts, which is quite cute. What I'm going to do now is take my piece of paper that I started with, and I've got here a cut from the larger heart die. What I'm doing is I'm using this as a stencil. So what I've done is I've cut a square out of the middle, I've put a piece of low-tack masking tape over that just to hold it down, and I'm going to put that pretty much on the card where I want it to be, just press down with that little middle bit, and then I'm going to use the same blue and create just an outline effect so that when the card is assembled there'll be a space in the middle with no ink that we can sit our inked sections inside. So you can see I'm going round. What I'm actually going to do is drag this out a little bit, turn the card obviously, and basically this sponge sort of distributes the ink relatively evenly. Just keep going over and over. The thing with the low tack tape is it does help stop you making a mess basically. Stops the thing moving. If it moved, obviously you wouldn't then get the perfect heart shape, so just keep going over and over and over. If you want to get a darker colour, just go straight with the ink onto the paper. If not, ink onto cutting mat, and then just stretch that out basically. So once you're happy with that, obviously take the heart off carefully, and then you end up with an effect like that. What I'm going to do now, close my ink up to stop that drying out and just put those on one side. I'm also going to use another stencil that I created, which are hearts, and this time I'm going to use a wetter ink, which is a Distress Oxide ink. This I use with these little spongy things, and basically you just sponge into the ink. Now this is a wetter ink, which is much better for small detail work like these little hearts. So I'm just going to lay that on there, and I'm just going to dab this on basically. And this just puts another layer of interest on the card. So I'm loosely following the ribbon that I had put on first of all with the watercolour pen. You can see, gets an interesting effect. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side so that these hearts appear to go behind and come out from underneath the heart shape in the middle. These inks are great, you can just press down on. These are water, I don't know, water soluble, whatever. So you can create some really interesting splatty effects with these inks. They're really great. There's so much you can do with them. They're absolutely brilliant. Right, that will do. Put that on one side. So we've now ended up with our watercolour ribbon and lots of hearts. What I'm now going to do is mount this one on the top. So in card making, we use a lot of this stuff. Double-sided tape. This is my best friend. Essential other item of craft making is a cup of tea. I have lots of hobbies. Card making is obviously one of them. Crafting in general. I also like photography, art and the theatre. I go to galleries a lot, hence moving to London. I used to live in Norfolk. I was born and bred there. Moved to London 6 years ago, mainly just to be able to go to the theatre and have galleries and things on, on my doorstep, so it's quite good. Right, this is double-sided tape, so I'm just going to pull a piece of this off. This is really great stuff. You can just rip it, so you pull off the piece you need, rip it, stick it on basically. Press down, same again. Obviously you can cut this to get smaller pieces, but on this one, we want some relatively chunky. I'm just ripping that off again, so put 3 pieces on there. Now I tend to use my tweezers for pretty much everything. These are really essential. When you find a pair of tweezers you like, you tend to stick with them. So I'm just going to peel that off. You peel off the backing tape obviously and leave the sticky. So those pieces are peeled off, and now I'm going to mount this on top of my card. So again, roughly just by eye. It's a handmade card, it doesn't need to be 1,000,000% correct. Nobody's going to get a ruler out and measure it. But you can see we're now building up the layers of interest. So from that original card, printed verse, dirtied edges with ink, watercolour line across, hearts on top, hearts now mounted 3 layers deep, one on one piece of card that's been inked, and the other 2 on a piece of white card that's been inked, which gives you that slight textural change between the colours. What I'm going to do now, I've got here a card blank, which you can buy commercially pretty much anywhere. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to mount this card on top of that. I'm sort of looking at it and thinking it would actually look nicer with a dark blue edging to it, so I'm going to cut a piece out of the blue. So I've got some blue card here. And by far the easiest way to do this, I could measure this and then measure this and try and get the two to fit together. An easier way is to just peel off that tape, stick it here by eye, and then cut evenly around it. So I'm going to do that. While I'm doing that, a fun fact about me, let me think. I am an Alien collector. So I first saw the film when it came out in 1979. How old was I at the time? 11. I think my dad snuck me into the cinema in King's Lynn to see it. Absolutely terrified, scary film when you're an 11-year-old, but it absolutely struck a chord with me, and I've been a fan ever since. So as I sit here in my little craft room, I'm looking at my shelves, and I've got, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, probably 20 different aliens of different styles, makes, models, etc. I'm just a fan and I collect them basically, so, and I have been doing that for years. So there's a little fun fact about me. I'm now sticking this down. This is a little bit delicate, this piece. Obviously try to get a straight border around. I am a little bit of a perfectionist, so I do like things to be right and even. So I'm just sticking that down now, carefully press. Always best with card making, turn it upside down, press on the back. If I had 5 hours to make something for a celebrity, I'd probably make them a card or some art, basically. The same skills we use in card making, you can use to make art, make pictures, make collectibles, things like that. I'd probably make something for somebody. Nice somebody, probably, I don't know, who do I admire? Graham Norton. I really like Graham Norton. I would probably make him a card or something to say, thank you for entertaining me because I find you very funny. Right, I'm just going to cut this round, so I'm looking at the distance here. I'm trying to match that roughly. Again, these are handmade crafts, they don't have to be perfect. But saying that, we always try to be perfection. So I'm just going to cut around that very quickly, using a simple craft knife here, something you have to have, and you have to keep the blades nice and sharp, so best to change them when they start to get dulled. Right, so now I have my card with my nice blue border. Just run your hands over that, stick it down, and then fill the back with double-sided tape again. You get through a lot of double-sided tape. Another essential item here to have is a bin for all the scrap bits of paper. So try and recycle where possible. Save the ozone layer, save the world. A cup of tea. Right, so double-sided tape on the back. I always work this way, where I create the card on a piece of card and then mount it onto the card blank. Some people just go straight onto the card blank, but I feel it adds just a feeling of weight and a feeling of quality. So anyway, stick your double-sided down on the back. You want to go all the way around the edges because it's the edges that will lift if anything's going to lift. Basically stick that around, and then I always go across the middle and I do a couple of little bits either side like that. You can get these tape rollers where you can just roll on, but I must admit they're very expensive and I just don't find them that good, to be honest. Peel that off. Like thus. I play this little game with myself. Can I collect all the tape in one hand whilst I'm doing it? Card making is my relaxation. I work in the city in London. I'm an IT consultant. So for me, get home after a stressful day, sit at my desk with a cup of tea, make a few cards, keeps me happy. Right, so I'm taking the card blank, I'm taking the card. This is the bit that is crucial to get right. So I always tend to put it on square on the cutting mat. Right, I just do this by eye. There are a million different ways of doing this, but I tend to just do it like this. There we go. Press that down again. Right, I'm going to add a little embellishment here, so I've got some little gems. Another different pair of tweezers, this time with a turned edge. So I'm going to take just this little blue gem, slide it sideways. I'm going to put one there, and I always use the end of the tweezer to just press that down, and I'm going to put another in the shadow as well. It's so warm, the glue's actually melting, I think. There we go. That looks fine. And what I might actually do is put a little clear one in the centre. But obviously just need to be a little bit careful with that, pressing that down, because there's a lot of layers there with a lot of little sticky pads. Okay, there we go, there's our card finished. So you can see, card blank, and mounted on the front there we have the piece that I printed with the verse on it, which is the words from the Katrina song, and it's got a lovely little heart with many layers there. Obviously the watercolour brush thing coming through, and then the heart's mounted on the top. There are obviously other enhancements you could add to this. You could add a bit of sparkle if you wanted to with a sparkly brush pen. That's what I'm probably going to do on this one. So always when you're using these, just get a little bit of paper and just test it, just to make sure it's working okay. Yeah, and then I'm just going to go in, roughly follow the line that I created with the watercolour pen, just brushing over just to give it a little sparkle and a little bit more interest. There we go. A subtle touch, but just gives it a little sheen. There we go, finished card in 20 minutes. Obviously a little bit Blue Peter, a little bit prepared ahead of time, but essentially there is your card. I will hold that up close just so you can see it properly. There you go.